Hey, it's Mr. Johns. Welcome to this episode of 3D Design with Sketchup. That's what it's called. So we're going to jump in. So Sketchup online, do a search for Sketchup for web. You should see this page if you found the right place. So look for that piece of furniture there. And then click on Start Modeling. Let me make that full screen. And then it will load Sketchup. And you probably don't have any files, but if you've used SketchUp before, you may still have some files there, but we'll create new. And because not everyone has used SketchUp before, this is also an introduction to SketchUp. And so what we have is basically some land, some ground, and some sky, but it doesn't exist. There really is no such thing as ground and sky in 3D, but to make your brain feel better, they have given you the illusion of that, and these lines help you know kind of where you are. So the solid blue always goes up, dotted blue always goes down, solid green always goes north, dotted green always south, solid red always goes east, and dotted red always goes west. So that'll help us kind of keep things under control a little bit better. And then this character, this figure here is standing here just to give you some reference. Like he's about 6 foot tall. So it's really important in SketchUp that you know how big your designs are. You could easily design something 10 miles long, and I'm not kidding, when you're trying to do something 10 inches long, roughly, right? If you don't control that. So this particular figure, that's why he's there to kind of help you. If you aren't really sure, if I'm trying to make like a like dice, right? A die, one die, that would be really, really small down here, right? Whereas if he wasn't there, if this guy was not there, and I am way out here, so see the reason, like, so that looks like the size would be correct, right? But 6 feet is right there. So super important to kind of know, and that's one thing we will practice, and I'll show you exactly how to control that. So 3D design is a skill that is good to have in your portfolio, your repertoire, your abilities. If you can 3D design something, that could become pretty useful, pretty important in the future. If you are applying for jobs and maybe it's a technical job and you know how to design in 3D, I would definitely put that on your resume for sure. So let's take a look at the screen. Other than those things on the left here, these are all the main tools. If you need something that's not on the list, you can click on the 3 dots at the bottom, and those 3 dots will bring up the rest of the tools. And so those are all of them. On the right side, these are I call them the right toolbar, and these are options related to designing. So the tools to design, and then all the options over there. So which would be the colors, the styles, the materials, also downloading items to 3D print or to go along with your designs. So we'll go through all of these, and that's what this is all about. So let's take a look at the first tool on the top here. This is just the arrow key. Everybody knows that as the select tool, right? So if you wanted to select something, either draw a box around or just click on, that is how you select something. You will use that one a lot. And by the way, make sure you have a mouse. SketchUp or any 3D design is really made for a mouse. The mouse is your main tools. It's like having a paintbrush if you're a painter. It is, I mean, you could do it with your fingers, but the paintbrush is so much more useful and exact. So same thing with the mouse here, and we'll get into that here in a second. So the second tool down is the eraser. So if I wanted to erase this character, I could just click on him and he should be gone. Why is he not? I don't know. Let me get in a little bit closer. Okay, so maybe I can't delete the... Oh, there we go. I just had to be right in the right spot for him. The character is just a one-piece thing. He's kind of... Control-Z will undo. Control-Z and Control-Y will redo. So undo, Control-Z, redo, Control-Y. So he is actually not a bunch of different lines and pieces. He is the only thing in SketchUp that is... other than like a line, he is one piece, and he's just there. He's just a picture. He's actually not a 3D. You can't even go behind him. See, he follows you around. You can actually turn that off, and you can go around him. I'm not going to get into that. It doesn't matter. But he is really just a flat picture. So, select tool, eraser tool, the pencil tool. This is for drawing lines, and so you can just click, drag, let go, and it will not stop drawing until you hit escape and you turn that tool off, or until you select another tool over here. So both ways. I find it faster to just hit escape. So next tool down, I've already selected by accident. That is the rectangle tool. So feel free to design with me. We'll be deleting all this stuff later anyway, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like. Notice that the rectangle tool, when you click, drag, make the shape you want, and then click again. Notice how it doesn't turn solid until I click twice. Once I click twice, now it is a solid shape. It should be gray on one side and white on the other. One side is the inside, one side is the outside. Also, sometimes you think maybe you're drawing in a certain direction, but you're actually not. And let me show you the trick there. With the pencil tool, for example, if I click and drag up, it is blue. Blue, and if I'm not straight up, it's not blue. So see my line? Right now it's black. But if I move it just a little bit and it snaps to blue and click, once I click, it's not blue anymore. The blue is just there to help you. So super important if you want to make something straight, that you're not just, because 3D is weird. You might think you're straight, like this looks great. Let's go ahead and just click. You know, it's not straight up and down. Same thing here. If I wanted to draw straight over, and by the way, SketchUp does so much to help you in your design. It even kind of thinks that, hey, maybe if I get close to this line, maybe you want to draw another line from the top. If I'm over here, it doesn't do that. But if I'm lined up close to it, a little dot shows up and it lets you click and drag. So here I've got all these options, which direction to go. If I wanted to go straight over, green is a good option. So that comes this direction, but make sure it stays green. Make sure it stays green. I could also go red if I snap that direction. So I'm going to go ahead and click. And if I drag my mouse, you'll see that it doesn't look like it, but it is on the red axis. Weird, right? Doesn't look like it, but it is. 3D design is really deceiving. So you have to trust these colors. So now I think I've got like a shape on the ground that is in my way. So I'm going to go ahead and to delete something, you can click the eraser tool, or you can just select it. It turns blue, and then hit delete. Select, delete. I like doing it that way better than the eraser. So, and then I'm going to go ahead and go straight down blue. And here's what's cool. How do I make a perfect rectangle? Well, it should turn into a little dot, and it shows me I've got this dotted red line that says, hey, if I stop here, it is lined up. And I'm going to go ahead and connect those together. If it turns solid, you did it right. If it doesn't turn solid, something was not quite right. You can always undo, Control-Z, and try again. Okay, so rectangle tool. Next tool down is the push-pull tool, and this is the tool that makes everything 3D. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. Notice how when I roll my mouse over a side of something, it turns dotted blue. Any of these will do that. Now the line doesn't do that because that's not a shape. So any of these will work. I can click, pull. I can also click, push. Now notice that it turned gray. That's because I turned it inside out. So if the white is the outside of the shape, but I push it through, I'm basically reversing the shape. And you want to be really careful that you don't do that. So keep everything on the outside white. Okay, so any of these will pull up. Go ahead and play with those. You can just pull any of the sides, push, pull. Again, try to keep them all white if you can. If you have more than one. Just playing right now. We're just playing with shapes. Oh, and by the way, I think I could use a pencil tool and I could connect this one down on the ground, and then it becomes a shape. And so I could also push that up as well, or pull that up as well. So there we go. Next tool down is the move tool, the 4 red arrows. So if I grab that, I can move. It acts almost like the push-pull tool, but it lets me move it. It won't move the shape like the one end of it will not move, but everything else completely moves, which is a little bit crazy. How is that useful? Well, sometimes you want to move like a line. So I roll my mouse until just the line turns blue, and then I pull, and that creates some pretty interesting shapes. Also, if I put my mouse over the corner, it turns into a dot, and I can pull or push and just move that point from that point, if that makes sense. And I just really made some interesting shapes there by doing that. So that's what the move tool does. So, and we'll come back to that. We'll do some more things with that later. The next tool down is the rotate tool. So it's like 2 red arrows facing each other. If I click on it and then click on either the side or the top. Now I haven't clicked yet. I'm just rolling my mouse. So I grab the rotate tool. I'm just putting my mouse on top. Now notice it's like a protractor. So if I click once, that places the protractor. And then if I move my mouse, now I can pretty much choose, do I want to go 90 degrees, 180, or just somewhere in between. That can help you do that. So when you choose, then you just click and then move your mouse. And it's going to twist this shape into a really weird shape. So I'm going to rotate around. So, all right, so you've been maybe struggling with how do you get around the screen. So let me just cover that. So the mouse is so important that if I push down the mouse wheel, push it down, it is a button. Not sure if you knew that, but the mouse wheel is also a button. If you push down and then just rotate, that will help you. They call it orbit in SketchUp. So it helps you orbit. So I'm orbiting around. I use that all the time. Mouse wheel zoom in, zoom out. So orbit and zoom in, zoom out really, really helps. Let's get off of that tool. The left mouse button is just for selecting. Right mouse button will let you right click on things, and there are some other options that'll pop up, and we'll get to those. And so the other thing that's important is you hold down the shift key, and let me just think here. Shift key, or is it control? Oh, that's what it was. Okay, so it's mouse wheel, push down the mouse wheel, and the shift key. That's called panning. So it doesn't actually move your shapes, it moves the screen. So if I'm way over here, I'm like, where's my thing? Where's my design? But I want it in the middle of the screen. Hold down shift, grab it, drag it to the middle of the screen, zoom back in. So practice that. So shift and panning, push down the mouse button wheel, that is orbiting. And so the combination of those things will let you really, really control where you are and what you see on the screen. Super important. Okay. So, let's rotate. Now it rotated the top piece that I had put it on, but it tried not to rotate anything else, but they're all connected, so it just twisted it. And that's kind of a mess, but I will show you how to fix that and do better. Sometimes you might want something weird like that, and you come up with some kind of really cool design doing that. It's possible. All right, now we're just looking at all the shapes. So that was rotate. This next one is scale, the scale tool. It's a square with a red arrow going up at an angle. And what it does is it lets us scale or resize something. So if you click on something to scale, and with the scale tool, you get all these green dots. Now you can shrink. And by the way, yes, this is how you make a pyramid. Some people... a lot of people have asked me that over the years. How do you make a pyramid? Well, you can kind of see how that can be done right here with this, if you do it right, with this tool. So this will size or scale, and if you grab like the middle green dot, it does something completely different. I mean, it's still part of the scale tool, but it moves, it squishes it from the middle, if you know what I mean. So you've probably used a similar tool like in Paint or some kind of paint program. And so normally, and it's getting pretty close to a pyramid, but not exact. Normally you would scale something when it's the whole thing is selected. And so let's go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to use the select tool. And again, I recommend you follow along. I'm going to just draw a box. Make sure you don't touch anything else because we're trying to select just one shape. So you might have to rotate, zoom out, zoom in. You might even have to pan a little bit. So I like to be kind of top view so I can draw a select box just around one shape. Now everything is selected and I can do a couple of things. One, now with the move tool, if I click move, the whole thing moves because the whole thing is selected. Right, if that makes sense. So now it's not doing these weird shapes because it's moving everything. Also, if I scale it, now the whole thing scales. So I can make it a really big rectangle, or I can make it a really small rectangle. Also, if I grab those middle green dots, that's how I can kind of squeeze it from both ends. I can kind of squeeze it in. So you got the corners for scaling. Everything is scaled equally, evenly, but the middle ones will always kind of squish it, if you know what I mean. So those are some things you can do while something is selected. So I'm going to go ahead and unselect it. So now nothing is selected. Remember, if it's not selected, now if I move something, it doesn't do the whole thing. It does that again. Okay, next tool down is the paint bucket. You notice that this is the first tool that when we clicked it, it brought up some options on the right. That's because it wants to know what do you want to paint, what color, what material. So if you click on the middle button here, this will browse or search, and it'll bring up all these extra categories of colors and textures. And it's everything from brick to wallpaper to carpet to water to bushes and trees, roofing material, stone, rocks, tile. Just a ton of stuff. So that's why you can really design some realistic looking scenes with SketchUp. So I can just pick any of these over here. If you just want a color, there is a category called colors, but that's boring. I can just click and make that that burgundy color. And then to close it down, this little, they call it a caret, this little up arrow, click that, it'll close it. You don't want to keep opening things. It'll get really annoying fast that all these things are open. So patterns are kind of weird, but, and my shape, by the way, you might not be able to see some of them because remember, his name is Ty. This figure is 6 feet tall. So and these designs are made to fit a normal sized thing. I just made this massive rectangle. So I bet if I paint it on something smaller, maybe. There's not a lot of pattern on those. I think the dots are too far apart because it's so big. So I'm going to close down the patterns and I'll just choose something else. So vegetation, so you've got grass, you've got stone. And see, those stones are real stone. They're photographs of real stone. And they're the real size of stone. And they look real if the shape is a realistic size. But if you make your shape too big or too small, it throws that all out of proportion. The patterns don't change size. They stay the size of a real brick. So you have to design something the correct shape. So anyway, we'll get back to paint bucket colors later. And if you ever want to close this whole thing down, you can just click this double arrow right there, and it kind of packs them away into their category. So paint bucket. Next down, this is the orbit tool. So this is the tool that the mouse button does, the mouse wheel button. But if you wanted to select it, you could. I don't know why you would ever want to select it. Maybe if you didn't have a mouse wheel that worked as a button, or you were just using a touchpad. So that's the only thing I could think of with that. So that, again, that is just orbit tool. And then here's the pan tool, and that's the same as shift mouse wheel down. So there is that tool available as well. Next down, this is a tape measure. This is a temporary measurement. So if you click, it will give you a, if I'm trying to measure how tall this thing is, it is 81 feet tall, and that's why I couldn't paint those little dots. They're probably on there still, but they're so little. That's an 81-foot tall square. And the tape measure, just like a real tape measure, once you let go, it just goes whoop, right back into the box, into the device, into the tool. So it's not permanent. And there is a permanent measuring tool called the dimensions tool, and I'm going to go ahead and use it right now. So if it's not on your main tool list, click on three dots, find the dimension tool. It looks like a dimension line, which we've covered before, and it's two red dots with the number 3 next to a line. And I use this all the time, and so will you in SketchUp. So if you click on, and by the way, I get in the habit of clicking every tool twice. Sometimes once doesn't take in SketchUp. It almost needs like a double click to switch tools. So click on, you'll see it turns into a dot when you're on the corner. If you click on one corner and then the other corner, it turns into a dot. Click again, and then pull out or push in or whatever, wherever you want to place that number. But push it off to the side. Don't leave it right here on the line. It's a little bit hard to read. Put it off to the side where you can see it, and then click again. So there's 3 clicks. You click on the first place, and then the first point, and then the second point, and then pull it out to place the dimension line. So it is good practice in 3D design to always use dimension lines. So I'm going to do the bottom one here. So click left, click right, pull out, click again. And I think I put it straight down, but it doesn't matter as long as I can read it. 71 feet, 6 9/16 of an inch. That's how wide that big block is. So those are dimension lines. All right, so back to the main toolbar. This is called a 2-point arc, and it allows you to basically click and click again on the width of a shape, and then push up or in, and it makes an arch or an arc. So in this case, I'm trying to go up blue, and then see how it makes that arch shape. 2-point arc. The A that looks like a kind of a 3-dimensional A, that is called 3D text. So if you click on that, it brings up this box that says, hey, what do you want to type in? I'm going to type in my last name. There are some options here. How big do you want it, etc. What font do you want? I'm going to, it's really small against that huge. I'm going to zoom in and place it on the side of one of these small shapes right here. And so we have 3D text. So what I want you to do is type in your last name or first name, doesn't matter, one of your names in 3D text. Find the side of a shape to place it on. Now, make sure you don't click and put it just floating in the air. You want to make sure you move your mouse over the side of a shape, and then once it's in place, click. And then if you need to scale it, go back to that scale tool. Everything those green dots pop up, and you can make it big enough so that I can see it when you do a screenshot later. Okay, so there's my last name, and I could paint it. I could go back to the paint bucket, go choose a color or a texture or something, and I could paint my name. So it really stands out. So if you want to do that, that's optional. So there we go. All right. Next, let's see what else. So I'm just going to click on all the other tools to see if there's anything that really stands out that we really need to know. Go ahead and click on the circle tool, and we're going to click on the ground. So it's blue when it's on the ground. Make sure it's not up on a wall or touching anything else. On the ground. So click to place it. Drag your mouse to make it how big you want it. Click again. And then go back to the push-pull tool. That is the 3D tool. Push-pull. And then click and just make a column, right? Or a cylinder or a silo. So that's the purpose of the circle tool. So what else here? There's a few that we'll do later on, but I think that's pretty much all. Oh, there is one right here. It's called the Zoom Extents tool. So it's a magnifying glass with 3 red arrows. And here's why you would use this. Let's say you're designing and you're zooming around and you're zooming out and you're panning and you're like, oh wait, I can't. Let's just say it's way over here. Where to go? Well, I can still find it. Where to go? Let's say you can't see it on your screen and you panic. You think it disappeared. You think it got deleted. If you go find that Zoom Extents tool, it will zoom back in as close as it can to everything you've designed. So that's kind of, I call it the Find My Stuff tool, because sometimes I do that and I'm like, where am I? Where is it? Like, I'm not really sure. And you can't even find those lines because you're so far away. You're like this. I mean, 3D designing sometimes gets really confusing, and you kind of feel lost sometimes. So sometimes you want to just recenter and just click on that Zoom Extents and zoom yourself back in, which is great. So other than that, I think the last tool would be the text tool. This is the 2D text. So go find that shape that you put your last name on. And now I want you to click on any part of the same shape. It could even be your last name. And click, drag, click again, and then delete what was there. What's cool is mine said John's, but I'm going to type in my first name. My first name is Brian. So, and then I'm just going to click off of it. So now I have, you can see it kind of sticks out a little bit. I've got 2D text for my first name. I've got 3D text for my last name. All right, so that kind of covers pretty much everything, and all the main tools on the left toolbar we've kind of gone through. So I want you to go ahead and play with it just a little bit more, and when you are done, I want you to take a screenshot on a Chromebook that is Control and then the middle screen on the top of your top row. It'll show you a little screen capture in the lower right corner. That's basically copy. And then go to your Gmail account, email me, brian.johns, boiseschools@boiseschools.org. And then in the email, Control V to paste, and it'll paste this screenshot into the email. Once it loads, hit send, and you've turned in today's assignment. So it's kind of probably ugly and random, but we've gone through all the tools, and tomorrow we'll cover the next time we'll cover the right toolbar before we start making things for real in SketchUp. So catch you tomorrow. For now, though, Mr. Johns is out.